So, Organic Content Vortex. What we're going to talk about is how to build a 100k ghostwriting offer. And the reason that I picked this topic is because I notice that almost always, when you are scaling something, you fall into one of two categories. This is especially true for ghostwriting. You are either providing one service to lots of people, or you are providing lots of services to one or two people. So, real quick, we can just divide the room. Who is one service to lots of people? Okay, makes sense. That's a lot of what we talk about in PGA. It's a lot of what we talk about in Velocity. The whole idea, this was how I scaled my agency, is you pick one thing, you specialize in it, and you go give that thing to as many people as possible, right? The other way is you pick one or two clients, they're more like whale clients, and you just keep solving the next problem for them. So who here falls in that category? Like I know Nils does, Dennis, you do, yep. Yep, okay, so fewer Caroline. I feel like you're sort of in between. Okay, so the way to think about this is that it depends on what you want. If you want to build a business, which means at some point you're going to elevate yourself to be an operator, you want to do the one service to lots of people, right? Because the more that you add, the more complexity that you create, the harder and harder it is to scale. So you pick one thing, then you hire a couple people to do that thing, and then you manage the people who do that thing, right? If you don't want to do that, or operating doesn't really get you excited, and you want to stay in the work, then it's actually better to do lots of services for one or two people. You go, I enjoy being a writer. I enjoy talking and getting to know these one or two clients. There's something to be learned from both, but we talk a lot about the first one in PGA. So today, we're going to talk about the second one. And in order to do that, first we're going to recap how to build a 10K offer. Everyone here should either be there or you're on the way there. You already understand how to do this. Then it's where do you go from there? So how do you build a 50K offer? And then ultimately, how do you build a 100K offer? And the idea with how to build a 100K offer is how can you entrench yourself in someone else's business? That's ultimately the game that you're playing. You want to become a linchpin for that other business. Okay? So the big idea, and the thing that I notice a lot of people misunderstand, where's Nils? Nils, we've been having this conversation a lot lately. Yeah, many times. And the thing that people misunderstand is they sit there and they go, how do I build a more expensive offer? You know, I'm selling whatever it is for $5,000 a month. How do I build a 10K offer? How do I build a 50K offer? And they think what's happening is that you go approach someone and you go, I have this thing that's $100,000. Do you want to buy it? And the vast majority of the time, that is not what's actually happening. No one, that's sort of like, you know, swiping on Tinder being like, do you want to get married? Do you want to get married? Do you want to get married? Right? You gotta go on some dates first. So the idea is you don't actually need one super expensive offer. You need lots of smaller offers that continue to solve the next problem for the client. So what is an organic content vortex? You will start to hear us use this term a lot in the next year because we have seen the impact that it has had on our business in PGA, and we're really excited about the idea of other ghostwriters, aka all of you, going and helping build this for other people because we've seen what it can do. So for context, just so everyone here understands, because you hear, oh, 100K offer, like that's so much money. I don't know who would ever be willing to pay that. For context, for us to build what I'm about to show you, it has probably cost us over $1 million. If you add up contractors and vendors and lessons learned, spending money on Facebook ads that we don't know how to run, and like all of these different things, right? We have easily spent over $1 million. So the question to ask is, all right, if we're willing to spend all that money, chances are there's a lot of other businesses that are willing to spend a fraction of that to help you, or for you to help them build this for their business. So at a glance, this is the Organic Content Vortex. You all have probably seen most of these, if not all of these. There's our EEC, you know, there's the CTA on Twitter. I'm still going to call it Twitter. I don't care that it's called X. It's the emails that we send. It's the application. It's the follow-up, like why haven't you booked a call or why haven't you filled out the application? It's the homepage of Premium Ghostwriting Academy. It's ads now that we're running on LinkedIn and Facebook. It's the pre-email that we send before someone hops on a call. Like chances are, everyone here, you've either seen this or you experienced it at one point. At one point, you were in this vortex, and then for whatever reason, You took the next step, right? So this is what it ends up looking like. For those that don't know, the screenshot, the bigger one, is a platform called Hyros, which basically does like paid ad tracking and attribution. You don't need to know a lot about it. What I want to show is Dickie's Slack, which he dropped in like right after this all clicked into place. So what happened was, we can now see all of this in Hyros, but someone clicks on the CTA to our EEC on Dickie's Twitter. The person doesn't do anything. They don't opt in. They don't take action. Then they go and Google us. So maybe it was one of our names. Maybe it was Premium Ghostwriting Academy. What is that? Gets hit with, when they land on the site, gets hit with a Facebook pixel. Then goes on Facebook and gets drilled with a retargeting ad. That retargeting ad nudges and is basically like, hey, you never joined the EEC. So the person goes, all right, you got me. So I'm in the vortex. Now I'm going to go opt into the EEC. Then they book a call 3 days later, and then they PIF, which is shorthand for pays in full. So that is 5 bullets, but that is an organic content vortex, where the moment you enter the ecosystem, you can't leave, right? Like once you get introduced to PGA, it doesn't matter where you go. We're going to follow you, and we're going to knock on your door and be like, why didn't you opt into the EEC? And then you can make this more and more advanced, where it's like, okay, well, you opted into the EEC. Why didn't you fill out an app? Okay, you filled out an app. Why didn't you book a call? Hey, you booked a call. Why didn't you show up? And you can just keep going and going and going. So it's really cool when it all clicks into place. This is the thing that every single business on planet Earth wants. That level of visibility, that level of reassurance, the ability to track all of that. And wherever you are today, and it really doesn't matter how you want to scale. If you're like, I want to scale with 1 or 2 whale clients and I just want to provide a bunch of services, or I want to take one service and I want to just get as many clients as possible. The way that you make money on the internet forever is you start with that end in mind and you go, okay, this is the thing that every single business on earth wants, right? Because what is it? They go, I want, when someone enters my ecosystem, they don't leave. I want to be able to attribute every single action that they take back to how much money did that make me, right? So if you start with that end, you realize, well, I can actually make money forever if I understand those pieces and I know how to build them. And then it's just your decision. It's like, which ones do you want to build? Here's the next big idea. The strategy is free, the execution is expensive. So what that means, and this little slide deck is a great example. I am giving the strategy, right? I am like, this is what an organic content vortex looks like. This is how it works. These are all the pieces. You want to build this, then you want to build that. That is the strategy, right? Then, if any one of you were like, Cole, that all makes a ton of sense. I need help building that in my business. I go, well, no problem. The execution is expensive, though. And I find that a lot of times people have these flipped, and they go, I'm going to charge for the strategy is the special sauce, and then I'm just going to undercut and be like, you don't have to pay me very much to execute on it. And for each person here, your offer would be 10 times stronger if every time you talked to someone, you didn't say, this is the service I provide. You said, this is what you should be doing. You give them the strategy. So an easy example, because I know a bunch of people here are doing social ghostwriting. When you're selling social ghostwriting, you don't go to someone and say, hey, I will ghostwrite 4 posts for you per month. That's not a strategy, right? You're not giving them anything. What you do is you go to them and you say, hey, you want this end goal. In order to achieve that end goal, let me tell you the strategy. And little one-liner here that I have used for years, and now all of our closers use. Whether or not we work together, I just want you to be successful. So you immediately remove all the pressure, and you go, whether or not we work together, I just want you to be successful. Here is what I would do. And when you tell them what to do, you're not saying, I would write a bunch of posts. You would say, well, you want to build thought leadership, so the first thing, you need this content pillar where you talk about futurism and what's happening in your industry. That is what allows you to be seen as a visionary, someone who's looking to the future. So every Monday, we're going to write about that. Then every Tuesday, right, it really helps. I think we can build some virality. People will also see you as a thought leader if you curate other interesting stories from other thought leaders. So every Tuesday, that's what we're going to do. And so you were giving them the entire strategy, right? And the goal is you literally want them to get off the call and go, did that person mean to give me all of the answers? And that's a good thing, right? Because then they get off the call, and then they sit there and they go, well, this all makes sense, but I have absolutely no idea how to execute. And that is why the execution is expensive, okay? So that is the big idea. And how that connects to all of these is we talk about this with how to build a 10K offer. These are the 3 things we drill into PGA. Everyone needs traffic. Everyone needs help increasing the opt-in, so how they get into your ecosystem. And then conversion rate can be nurtured and measured in a bunch of different ways. Like maybe the conversion rate is how many people buy a product, how many people buy a service, how many people fill out an app, how many people book a call. And so you can nurture them with these 3 different services. You drive traffic with social, you get them to opt in with an EEC, and then you continue to increase the conversion with some sort of weekly newsletter. And this creates a V1 of a mini organic content vortex. So everyone here, we've talked about these skills. And if your goal is how do I increase revenue as quickly as possible in the next 2 weeks, it's to basically go to every client and go, I will build you the other one of these, right? Because if you have an opt-in, you need help driving traffic. If you're driving traffic, you need an opt-in. If you have both, you need to nurture them to conversion. If you're nurturing people to conversion, but people aren't converting, maybe you need higher quality traffic, right? Like all of them connect together. And so this is the lowest hanging fruit, and chances are everyone here is doing some version of this, but I guarantee you there's probably another 2, 3, 4 clients that you are working with or have worked with that need one of these pieces, and for whatever reason, you haven't done it. Maybe you have a good reason not to do it, and you go, I want to just do my one thing and I want to serve it to as many people as possible. That's fine, but just realize that this is the opportunity. This is the idea. Every time you solve a problem for people, you create a new problem, right? So you help someone drive higher quality traffic, and then they go, well, this is amazing, you did a great job. Now I need to get them on my email list. And then you get them on their email list. They go, wow, this is amazing. But now they just finished the EEC and they haven't heard from me in 10 days. It's the next problem, right? So this creates the solution problem cycle. And I find that most people, this is the thing that it's not that they don't understand it, it's that they take it for granted. And so you're working with a client and you think that what's supposed to happen is the client is going to come to you and be like, hey, I want to hire you for another thing, right? Which immediately is sort of reverting back into that freelancer mindset. It's like, oh, I'm going to sit around, I'm going to wait, and then when the client's ready, the client's going to come to me. There's a joke in the management consulting world where whenever McKinsey or Bain or one of these big companies, whenever they're 50% through a project, they start pre-selling the next project. So you're never actually waiting until the project is done, right? You're like halfway through, I don't know, cleaning up the accounting of whatever department. As you're like halfway through, you're like, I'm starting to notice another problem. And you're immediately planting the seed for the next project, the next project, the next project, right? And so this is the thing that people, it's like you're waiting for it to fall into your lap, when in reality, you have to be the one that goes to the client and says, hey, as we start to drive traffic, I can already anticipate what the next problem is going to be. And so you plant that seed for them. And then they go, oh, interesting. Well, how do we solve that? And you're like, well, let me tell you the strategy. Then you run it back. Here's exactly what I would do. Whether or not we work together, I just want you to be successful. Plant the seed, plant the seed, plant the seed. Every problem your client has is an opportunity for you. So this is how you build a 10K offer. We've covered all this. Everyone here is probably doing this. On the low end, 5 to 10K a month. You can get just these 3 things up to 15, 20 grand a month very easily, working with 1 or 2 clients. Okay. How this changes when you go to build a 50K offer is you have to start to understand whose business you're working with and what they need. So here's a couple different archetypes. So Justin Welsh is a great example. Justin is like the pure low-ticket digital product, just mass volume. I need traffic. I need people on my email list. Some of those people convert and buy my digital product, right? So you can help someone like Justin if you understand the pieces that go into that, right? And that is usually selling a low-ticket digital product. Like, yeah, you can get advanced a little bit, but that's the most basic version. Things start to get more advanced when you need to get people on the phone. And so 2 different examples is, one, PGA falls in this group of group coaching, education, one-to-many, that sort of model. And then business archetype 3 is more service provider. So you're working with agencies, accountants, B2B technology. But the core difference between 2 and 3 and 1 is getting people on the phone. And the moment that you need to get someone on the phone, everything changes. Because now you need, as you will see, I'll talk about it, Daniel will talk about it, you need a bunch of different sequences to make sure that people fill out an app, or people show up for their call, or if they miss their call, that they reschedule, right? So part of the game isn't just understanding how to ghostwrite these things, it's actually understanding what that particular business needs and then using ghostwriting to solve that need. So just to walk through the math on this, if you end up building all of these things for someone, right, and you're not even counting the monthly recurring revenue that starts to stick over time, you're already at a 50 grand offer just by going, I'm going to help you drive traffic, we're going to build an EEC, you're going to need to nurture people with a weekly newsletter, but then you're going to need some sort of FOMO sequence, probably also going to need an abandoned cart sequence, then also maybe you have an upsell sequence. For everyone here, you're going to watch us do this next month, 2 months from now, with Black Friday. We're going to have a bunch of different sequences. Like, oh, here's the Black Friday product. You didn't want that? Here's the downsell. We can downsell with a payment plan. Oh, we could also upsell. Do you want to see how we did it? There's all these different things you can build. An onboarding sequence. Every single person needs some sort of onboarding. And we have found that the vast majority of companies and products and programs and platforms, they all struggle with this. They don't actually know what a good onboarding looks like. And by the way, you all have experienced this, especially, has everyone here taken Ship 30? Almost everyone? Okay, one of the things that we did not expect, we didn't even know this when we were building, is people tweeting, Ship 30's onboarding is the best onboarding I've ever been through, ever. And all we did was just over-communicate and educate. It really wasn't we're not building a rocket to Mars. It was just really basic stuff, but we executed the fundamentals. And then offboarding. So depending on what it is, Justin's a great example. When someone buys Creator MBA, I think it's called, right? They should have some sort of onboarding. So here's an introduction to the product. Here's how to get the most out of it. Here are the different sections. Here are the resources. And then maybe 4 weeks later, some sort of offboarding. Hey, what did you think? Do you have any follow-up questions? Could I answer anything for you? Could you leave a testimonial? Could you give feedback for this? Right? Most people don't have that. Testimonial sequence. Just hey, I never heard from you. By the way, if you could submit your testimonial here, those testimonials get piped to my website, right? Maybe some sort of bonus. If you fill out this testimonial, I'll give you this bonus. So these are all these low-hanging fruit things that they don't seem like a lot until you add them all up together and you go through someone's entire system and you're like, wow, that was extremely impressive. A 100K offer is really just that, but more. And if you notice, you're not selling this out the gate. What you're doing is you're solving a problem, then you're planting the seed for the next problem, then you're solving that problem, then you're planting the seed for the next problem, and so on. And some of these things, these are newer topics for us. We're going to start talking about this more. But really the difference and how you end up extending LTV to 100K plus, and this is how you entrench yourself in someone else's business, is first, you're just scaling traffic to more platforms. One of the things that we did this year, YouTube is the exception because the founder or one of the co-founders or creators, you sort of have to accept that you're going to play the YouTube game. Everything else you can repurpose. Instagram, all we're doing is just taking our Twitter threads and then putting them over images and posting them on Instagram. Newsletters, every time we write a newsletter for PGA, we're posting it as an article on Medium, an answer on Quora, and then we're also putting it on PGA's website to rank for SEO. And you can do some interesting things, quick little crash course. What you do is you post it on the website first, and then when you upload it to Medium, there's a setting where you can add what's called a canonical tag, and that tells Medium and tells Google that this is not the original version of the article. So the original, which is on the website, which ranks, will always rank the highest. And it's just a nice, clean way where these platforms don't start cannibalizing each other. But none of this is actually extra work. You're just taking all the things that you're doing and putting it on more platforms. The main thing, the main sequence that people need help building is the book a call sequence. I think this will probably be one of the bigger new pieces of information and curriculum that we deploy over the next couple months because this is the engine of our entire business, is this book a call sequence. And so if you understand how this works and you realize, Katrina, we were just having this conversation, for those that don't know, Katrina took over my position at Category Pirates. So when I was ready to exit the business, I called her up. I said, hey, there's a really exciting opportunity. I think you'd be perfect for it. So now they are running a cohort model for category designers, right? And if you want to sell something that is a premium, you're not going to sell that through email. you need to get people on the phone, right? If something's 6 grand, 8 grand, 10 grand, 12 grand, 15 grand, like no, someone's not gonna buy just because you sent them a really nice email, right? And so the book a call sequence, if you understand this and you know how to build this, again, the real opportunity is you being able to get on the phone with someone and go, let me educate you on the type of business that you should have. You walk into their business and go, I can't believe you don't have this engine. What a huge mistake. You don't know? Again, you're not a writer. You're a business consultant who happens to know how to write. And then third, and this is a really small thing, we're going to start talking about this more and more, is especially when someone has a large organic presence, you don't need to be the master of Facebook ads. You don't need to know how to scale ads to 1 million a month. What connects the whole vortex is some very, very basic, you put a pixel on your site or maybe a thank you page, and then you can run, it doesn't even have to be that expensive. You can just run some very mild retargeting ads, which by the way, I mean, these platforms are worth billions of dollars for a reason. They made it very, very easy to click a couple buttons and go, okay, I'm just gonna retarget these people. You upload a list, you retarget them. And this is what connects the vortex, where once someone enters, now it doesn't matter where they go. You're gonna remind them of who you are. And a quick side note on paid. For everyone here, because I've been noticing this question a lot where people will say, I provide this service, but the client isn't, they don't know what result they're paying for. I want to get better at delivering a result. And the way I always answer that question is, first of all, most of the things that you're creating, it's not that you're promising a result, it's that they're not doing it and now you're helping them do it. You weren't writing on X or LinkedIn, now you're writing on X and LinkedIn. You weren't writing thought leadership articles, now you're writing thought leadership articles, right? So it is the fact that it is you going 0 to 1. That is the value. However, if you want to juice the numbers a little bit, the easiest way to do that is to use a very small amount of paid and start boosting things. So for example, if you're ghostwriting for a new client, like Matthew, I think we talked about this maybe very early on. If you're ghostwriting for a client that is brand new to a platform, they have 0 followers, it's gonna take a long time to get organic traffic going, right? And it's gonna be frustrating and they're gonna be like, I don't understand, I wrote 3 things, why aren't I viral and king of the world? They don't know. The way that you solve that very easily is you bake into your retainer. You say, I charge $3,500 a month. You take maybe the top $500 or the top $300 and you boost each post. You throw $50 behind it. And by the way, if you haven't done this before, you literally just go into X, you can see it on your phone, you pull up each post and in the upper right-hand corner, there's a little button that says promote. You click that, you're like, America. Like that's literally how it works, okay? And then overnight, the client is like, oh my God, I got 40 likes on this thing. This is amazing. And you spent like $40, And all of a sudden, it makes your life significantly easier. So little pro tip, we actually ended up doing this with some of our clients. Do you remember? I think we did that, didn't we? Yeah. Yeah, towards the end. And it's very effective. So we're gonna talk more about this over the next year, but I just want to plant the seed here for everyone. Like, don't be afraid of paid. I think if we could go back, I'm happy that we built everything the way that we did, but I think we spent a lot of time like being afraid of paid and not wanting to open the door. And in reality, organic is a lot harder, and paid isn't that scary. And so I think just sort of realizing that it's not one or the other, these can work together very well, and so it is worth power leveling just 20% knowledge of understanding how paid ads work. So let's bring this all together. To build an organic content vortex, how do you start? Most people, you're starting by driving traffic, or you're upgrading the opt-in, or maybe you're doing both. Congratulations, you just made almost 20 grand. The third month, so MRR starts to stack. You go, you know what, we got a bunch of people opting in, we should probably just make sure that they keep hearing from us. Let's do a weekly newsletter. And all of these prices, by the way, are, if I was starting my agency tomorrow, this is what I would charge. So you need a weekly newsletter. Okay, then the next month, you're like, you know what? Depending on your business, you need a book a call sequence, and part of the book a call sequence is you need a different sequence that's called a pre-call reminder sequence, because it's great that the person booked a call, but now you got to remind them to actually get on the call. And this is where things get even more advanced, where like now we're seeing as we scale cold traffic, we need to be better and better and more intentional about sending specific assets to warm the person up. They're like, I don't know who you are. I just saw an ad, right? So the pre-call reminder sequence is like, hey, before your call on Thursday, real quick, here's Cole talking to Ali Abdal about ghostwriting. Maybe you should listen to that, right? So you have to present them with things that help them understand, okay, well, what am I walking into? Why should I trust these people? Month 5, okay, now we're just letting it ride. You're just gonna continue stacking the MRR. Month 6, then we start to close the loop. So we're like, all right, you know what? Now we need to work on filling out an app. Maybe that's the next bottleneck. That's a different sequence. Every sequence, you should just default to it's $5,000. Every time you build a sequence, it's $5,000. You can always come down, you can't come up. And then some very basic retargeting, like Google AdWords, all you're setting up is like, if someone Googles Nicholas Cole, Dickie Bush, Premium Ghostwriting Academy. Great. We just want to make sure that we're the first link that shows up. And then some very basic Facebook and Instagram retargeting. And then ultimately, we're just going to scale the traffic. We're going to take more and more of the things that we're creating and post them across different platforms. That is a very easy upsell, especially if you're starting to show traction. You're like, hey, you're seeing traction. Why don't we just do this across more platforms? This doesn't require you to create anything new. You've already done the hard work. Now you're just duplicating, right? And that's pretty much it. And now you're past 100 grand. And if you notice, you would never take this and tell this to someone on the first call. And that should be the takeaway. It's like you are not selling this end result the first time you talk to someone. You're like, hey, let's bring things down. Most of, if not all of you have experienced this. Most of the people that you're selling to are idea people, right? They love ideas. They want to do everything all the time. And so the biggest value that you can provide is actually saying, yeah, look, this is the direction, but we are going to start here. And let me explain how these pieces start to stack up. And you just keep extending the LTV, extending the LTV. So that's how you build an organic content vortex. Questions? Trevor, what's up?
So are you suggesting that for one client?
Again, it depends on which one do you want? Like, do you want to be an operator or do you want to keep doing the writing? And a different way of saying this, by the way, is how much do you hate outreach? Like, that's literally Eduardo? Yeah. It's like, how much do you hate outreach? Because if you build the skill of outreach, I've told this story a million times. We built our entire agency only on cold outreach. There was no fancy content marketing. I didn't know how to do any of this shit back then. The only thing we did was email people we had never talked to before. And we grew a lot. And so if you are excited to build that skill, that is the business you end up building, right? Like, Matthew, that's your business. And now you're starting to get to a point where you've built more and more credibility, you have referrals, you have more and more happy clients, you now have the bandwidth to start creating more of your own content so you can attract clients in other ways, right? Like, it does trend away from outreach, but if you hate outreach, the way you grow your business is you sell more stuff to the people already giving you money. So Trevor, it depends. Like, do you want to hire people or do you want to do the work? You want to hire people? Then you better fall in love with outreach and fall in love with creating checklists for other people. Yeah, that's the business. And that's okay. But like, so many of these things, I've become really obsessed with this idea that all business advice, it's not that any of it is right or wrong, it's that it is contextual. The thing you would tell someone at step 0 is very different than what you would tell someone at step 100, right? And so many of these things, it's not that one is better than the other, it's just, what do you want? What sort of business do you want to build? So if that's what you want to build, Trevor, then like, those are the skills to build.
Yeah, makes sense.
Artia, what's up? Okay, quick little like SEO content marketing crash course. So what we do is every week we have a value newsletter that goes out to everyone on our PGA list. Ash, you know better than I. We're sending one value email a week? Okay, so that is our weekly newsletter, right? And that just keeps people warm. in order to write that email, what you want to do is you want to sort of start with, okay, ultimately I want this to end up on our website, right? So I might as well double dip. So to write the email, you start from a place of what are the things that I would ultimately like to rank for? And by the way, just so everyone knows, like SEO is not complicated. SEO is literally take the topic you want to become known for, write about that a lot, and put it on your website. And so a nice little hack is going into writing each newsletter. What we do, or what Ash does, is you go into Google and you start like a phrase that would have to do with the thing that you're writing about or the type of person you want to attract. So for us, we might go into Google and go like, how to start ghostwriting, right? And when you start typing a phrase, Google has the autofill, right? And so you start looking for what are the really long tail key phrases. So maybe it's like how to start ghostwriting as a college graduate in Chicago. Like that's an example of a really long tail key phrase. And so you can decide where you want to cut it off, but you would then take some portion of that key phrase and go, well, that should be the title of the article. So you start with the end in mind, then you go write the newsletter, you send the newsletter, but the newsletter was written in a way just like an SEO blog, and then you put it on your site, and then you put it on Medium with a little canonical tag so that it doesn't cannibalize. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah, and obviously there's extremes for everything, right? Like if you are trying to run a life insurance company, like life insurance and SEO is a great example of you're going to be spending a ton of money on SEO agencies trying to figure out how to fine tune every little thing in every article. The vast majority of people don't need to do that. Like ghostwriting is an amazing example of a niche where you don't need to do that. It's not like we're competing with, State Farm for keywords, right? So, what's up? Yeah, what's funny about this is the people in B2B go, I don't know if this works in B2B, and the people in B2C go, I don't know if this works in B2C, right? And so ultimately, it actually doesn't have anything to do with whether or not it works in B2B or B2C. It comes down to why they don't think it can work for them. And so it's more of a question of how do you get them to understand that it works for them. Sometimes you can do that just by explaining, like very basic. Do you think more people will buy from you if they understand the problems you solve? Person's like, yes, I do. You're like, okay, great. So why don't we answer those in emails, right? Like you got to really handhold them. If it's not that, the example that I use in PGA all the time is what you do is you point to someone else that they look to, either a competitor or someone they look up to or someone they look down to. And you're like, well, this person's doing it over here. Why do you think they're doing it? And that gives a feeling of FOMO where they're like, oh, well, shit, our competitor's doing that, so we should be doing that, right? So a lot of times when I'm trying to convince a client of something, I want to show them it in action. And if there's no one doing the thing, then I just go ahead and mock it up myself. And I'm like, strategy's free. This is what the first email should be. This is what the second email should be. Like, I just give them all the answers. And then if they don't get it, like, you move on. There's 8 billion people in the world. Yeah, I will tell you that the vast majority of the time when that happens, it has, unless it's just a horribly executed sequence, it almost never has to do with the sequence. It has to do with the pricing, it has to do with the offer. And you could write the best sequence in the world and it really doesn't matter, because you have an offer problem or you have a pricing problem. Like one of the things that we see constantly in education is people go through, like they'll execute all of these things, but then they'll be like, I want to sell my low ticket digital product for $2,000. It's like, it's not going to happen. You might sell one of them, but like that's not going to happen, And so the reason I harp on this idea of the strategy is free, the execution is expensive, is ultimately you want to get to a place where when that happens, the call that you have with them isn't like, oh, sorry that you wasted your money. The call that you have with them is, okay, let me educate you on what offer creation looks like. Because they don't know, And I think that's a hard thing to wrap your brain around. It's like you're selling to these people that own businesses or they're in power positions, but ultimately, like the vast majority of people don't know anything that I just talked about. And that is the opportunity, you know? And so you want to get to a place where, and if you want to get really advanced with it, what I would do is I would get on calls with people like that, and I would be like, yeah, honestly, the real problem that you have is your offer and your pricing. Just for context, I would charge like 100 grand to help you solve that. But I really value our relationship. Let me just walk you through it for free. And then you just tell them all the answers. And you just give it to them. And then they ideally understand the problem. And they're like, oh, we have the wrong offer. It's probably intangible, not tangible. It's probably very subjective, not objective. We don't actually know who it's for. You know, it's mindfulness for everyone, right? And then you're like, and you're in the wrong price point. And you do all that free consulting, and then you're like, okay, so with that in mind, do you want to make these tweaks? Because then I'm game to help you write these other sequences that help solve it. So you just you are a consultant, full-blown consultant, and you just give them the answers. Yeah, that's just part of it. And I think I would really encourage everyone here, you can't and you shouldn't measure success or any of these things over like 6 months or a year. Like you are all playing an infinite game called business. And there's a reason why a lot of people who start with services and helping other people eventually just go and build their own shit. And the fundamental reason is because eventually you get tired of telling other people the answer and them not doing it, right? I met, anyone here know Derek Halpern? He was like an OG like internet marketer. I met him in Miami. He now runs like a, I don't know, $500 million, no, maybe like $100 million health and wellness protein company. And I was talking with him and I was like, what made you pivot from education to e-com? And he was like, I just got tired of people not listening to me. Like seriously, you're like, if you change these things, you will sell courses. And they're like, but I just want mindfulness for everyone, you know? And like they can't do it. And so you have to sort of ground yourself in that you are getting paid to build all of the skills that you could use forever. Like that's ultimately what ghostwriting is best at. You're getting paid to learn. You might love it, you might choose to do it forever, but ultimately these are just all the same skills that we now deploy in our business, you know? Just I got paid for 8 years to do it for other people. And so I would encourage you to think about it that way. And that's just part of the game. Like you're gonna tell 10 people the answer and one of them is gonna listen.